We will now begin the leader session 2, so please have a seat. Okay. Good morning, distinguished guests and development partners and colleagues. Very warm welcome to the Asia Pacific Food Systems Forum 2026. We are also welcoming online participants to this forum. My name is Sunny Kim. I'm Senior Natural Resources and Agriculture Specialist at the Asian Development Bank, and I'm really excited to moderate this session. This session brings together development partners and thought leaders to explore how we can strengthen our collaboration to expedite and advance the food system transformation, which is critical and urgent for humanity at this extraordinary time. To open our session, it is my great pleasure to invite Fatima Yasmin, Vice President for Sectors and Themes at the Asian Development Bank, to deliver the welcome message. Vice President Fatima oversees the strategy and operations of ADB's 8 sectors and key thematic areas. Please join me in warmly welcoming Vice President Fatima. Thank you.
Excellencies, distinguished partners, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning again. Earlier today, President Kanda reminded us that transforming food system, it's not simply about producing more food. It is also about reshaping the system that connect climate resilience, economic growth, public health, and the protection of natural environment. Asia and the Pacific feeds more than half of the world's population. Yet, nearly 1.9 billion people in our region cannot afford a healthy diet. Our food systems also face growing pressure from climate change, water security, land degradation, and biodiversity. Asia's food story has been strongly aligned with the water story. From glacier-fed mountains to the great river basins of Mekong, Ganges, Indus, and Yangtze. Water is the lifeline for farms, cities, ecosystems, and economies. When rivers fail, food systems also falter, leading to affecting livelihoods, nutrition, and risking stability. Over the past 4 years, ADB's $14 billion food security commitment supported more than 62 million farmers across 27 countries and created over 500,000 jobs. But as we scaled our response, it became clear that the food crisis of 2022 was not an isolated shock. It was a symptom of deeper structural shortcomings driven by climate change, nature loss, and chronic malnutrition. Addressing symptoms is no longer enough. That is why ADB is now advancing a $40 billion food systems transformation agenda 2022 to 2030. Moving beyond fragmented interventions toward integrated country-led pathways that tackle at scale the root causes of food insecurity. Today, I would like to highlight 3 pillars that will shape how we operationalize this transformation. First, transformation needs to be country-driven. Food systems are deeply embedded in national landscapes, institutions, and rural economies. There is no one-size-fits-all model. ADB is working with our DMCs to prepare and implement national food system transformation action plans. These plans will help translate high-level ambitions into bankable programs that support rural livelihood, job creation, and healthier diets. For example, in Indonesia, ADB is helping to enhance food production through investment in horticulture, aquaculture, irrigation, and flood risk reduction, while also supporting market regulations, health, and nutrition. Second, transformation requires a landscape approach. Food systems do not operate farm by farm. They operate across watersheds, river basins, and coastal ecosystems. That is why ADB increasingly uses landscapes as the framework for investments. We are already advancing this approach through initiatives such as resilient river basins, glaciers to farms, and reach to reef, which linked upstream ecosystem restoration with downstream food production and coastal systems. Projects such as the Integrated Flood Resilience and Adaptation Project in Philippines are using basin-level assessments of natural capital, climate risks to inform project design. Third, transformation needs to be science-based and partnership-driven. To achieve this, ADB is deepening collaboration with academia, research institutions, and global partners, including CGIAR, FAO, IFAD, WFP, and many others. At the same time, we need to strengthen knowledge platforms that help countries design integrated food systems investments. In partnership with global initiatives such as GEF Food Systems Integrated Program, we see a major opportunity to build a regional knowledge platform on landscape approaches that support upstream analytics, knowledge sharing, and capacity building. We would help countries translate science and policy insights into bankable national projects. Operationalizing food systems transformation requires integration at every level, integration across sectors, financing instruments, and institutions. If we succeed, the landscapes of Asia and the Pacific could become the foundation of resilience and prosperity for generations to come. That is the ambition and commitment of ADB's Food Systems Transformation Agenda. Forums like this help us exchange ideas, challenge conventional thinking, and uncover new solutions. Together, we can translate ideas into actions and build food systems that nourish people, protect nature, and revitalize rural communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice President Fatima, for your insightful remarks and setting the tone of today's session. As Vice President Fatima emphasized, ADB is now committed to moving towards more integrated and country-driven food system transformation. To guide our discussion today, I think it will be useful to be reminded about yesterday's key highlights from the Development Partner Roundtable for Food System Transformation Ambition. For this, I would like to invite Qingfeng Zhang, Senior Director of Agriculture, Food, Nature, and Rural Development Sector Office, the Asian Development Bank. He leads and oversees ADB's overall rural development, natural resources, food security, and agriculture operations. Please join me in welcoming Qingfeng. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Again, I want to take this opportunity to thank VP for the insightful guidance for the food system transformation and also his leadership. So let me briefly summarize this key message from the Development Partner Roundtable discussion yesterday afternoon. About the 80 representatives from the partner organizations and the government joined this discussion on strengthening strategic partnership for food system transformation. Each of the partners share the three key innovations and the priority actions they are advanced to accelerate the food system transformation. Let me use the three slides quickly to walk through the key highlights. We know that ADB successfully delivered the $14 billion commitment for food security between the 2022 and the 2025. We're reaching 62 million farmers and support the more than 500,000 jobs across the region. Again, partnership will be critical for this success. This progress was strengthened by the FI Action Plan on the food security, which launched in 2022 in May. The first international financial institutions come together and their shared action plan to address the supply chain disruptions triggered by the COVID and also the war in Ukraine. Next slide. Yeah, so I recognize the significant hidden environmental and also social costs of the traditional farming practices and also supply systems. Our partners also broadly support and also concur ADB's 5 pillars framework for food system transformation. This includes natural capital, modern agro-food system value chains, nutrition and health diet, resilient infrastructure, and a stronger social protection and regional cooperation. This is a foundation for the advances that ADB's $14 billion food system transformations ambition by the 2030. Of course, As a vice president already highlighted, partnership very critical. As you can see from this slide, we right now have a very strong partnership with IFA, FAO, World Bank, WFP, Gates Foundation, Rockefeller Foundations, but also recognize the new progress, the new partnership important. Of course, Vice President already mentioned about we work with the CGI, Gates Foundation through the Clean House facility. And this morning we signed a new MOU with WFP on the nutrition integration. We also signed an MOU with Japan's Ministry of the Agriculture, Forestry and Fishery this morning on the agricultural innovations and the carbon market. Of course, the next few days, we're going to discuss about the initiative since it's a agricultural innovation for scale with the partners including the UIE, Gates Foundations, and also Chicago University. But at the same time, we also concur this is a very important approach. Our Vice President just mentioned about one is a country-driven approach for food system transformation, and we also concur this landscape approach for the river basin approach for food system transformation. Through the FI Global Forum on the Food System Transformation, we advance the joint work on the private sector participation, tracking the food system financing, scaling digital solutions. We are also discussing about the opportunities to deepen cooperation through the GF LAN on the integrated food system transformation. So while this partnership very timely and also essential, we also discuss about the urging and also broader cooperation, especially as the supply chain disruptions, fertilizer shortage, and the tension in the Middle East continue affect the global food and the input markets. So work together will be essential to build the resilient, inclusive, and sustainable food system for the region. Again, thank you to VP and thank you to all of their colleagues to attend this important forum. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Qingfang, for the overview of ADB's priorities and the partnerships that we are pursuing. Building on this information, today's leaders session will feature two panel discussions. The first panel will focus on country perspectives, where we will hear directly from government leaders about how their countries are advancing food systems transformation and what priorities they see moving forward. The second panel will bring together global partners and international organizations to explore pathways and partnership opportunities toward the food system transformation. So let us begin with our first panel on country perspectives. We are very honored to have extraordinary panel here. My great pleasure to introduce three distinguished panelists. The Honorable Marino Asanami Sabino, Vice Prime Minister and Coordinating Minister for Social Affairs and Minister for Rural Development and Community Housing of Timor-Leste. The Honorable J. Kumar Lawar, Minister for Agro-Marketing and Protocol of the Government of Maharashtra, India. Yoichi Watanabe, Vice Minister from the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries of Japan. Excellencies, please join me in the podium. For the next about 30 minutes, we are going to discuss and hear from you about the country perspectives. I would like to begin with Timor-Leste and Vice Prime Minister Asanami. For a question about how your understanding of the food system transformation from your country's context, meaning that from Timor-Leste's perspective, what does food system transformation really mean in practical terms, and what are your description of the government's key priorities in this context?
Thank you. For the Timor-Leste, food system transformation is a vital step toward becoming a more self-resilient and healthy nation. Second, shift from the narrow agriculture focus to comprehensive system approach. And 3 pillars is important: strengthen the infrastructure and value chains, addressing nutrition security, and building climate resilience, and also good cross-sectoral coordination. Yeah, so we are a new country, so that's why in the process of the increase the production, we also how to transform the traditional agriculture to the modern agriculture. We support in the intensification, extensification, and rehabilitation, also diversification. Yeah, for the extensification, we support the tractor, hand tractor, all the material agriculture to modernize. And also for the intensification, we also intervention the good seed and also organic approximation. So, yeah, but also we know that degradation and erosion is also important and the key. So now Timor-Leste, we have 44 aerial protection, include the 2 protection for marine site, and then also 1 national park national Coni Santana is the east side, and also for the central we have also Park National Cariala Sanano Guzmão, and Botanic Francisco Xavier, the former president. And also we have a conservation area in Tileomar. So I think the cross-sectoral, we have good coordination, like we have CONSANTIL, Conselho Nacional Segurança e Soberania Alimentar and Nutritional, National Council for the Food and Food Security and Food Sovereignty and Nutrition, is a cross-sector, is not only ministerial meeting, but also UN agency, include the ADB active in this meeting coordination. And all the ministers responsible, like commerce industry, responsible for the distribution, responsible for the market, and agriculture, Minister of Agriculture is the Vice President. I am President, and Minister of Agriculture, Vice President is responsible for the increase the productivity, and also Minister of Public Work, because the problem of the water and sanitation is also key, is a key influence for the stunting. So we have another coordination is we have task force, national task force for the 3 pillars. One is ECD, nutrition, and youth and empowerment. Why? Because we need how to involve young in the agriculture, because now agriculture traditional is all now. So also for the focus for the stunting, we have 1 national unit, is also cross sectoral coordination for the focus for the stunting. So now we still continue strengthening, starting the prepare the production, and then processing, distribution, and also logistic, and market oriented. So we hope that next step by step we strengthen the coordination is important. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Prime Minister. I think it's interesting for me to hear a country's perspective on the food system transformation directly from the countries as we go to our client countries and work together on this. It's a really nice setting to hear about. I think you mentioned about the mechanization aspects, but right after that you also mentioned about the natural resources and the natural capital kind of values and how you're addressing in the governance system through the one coordination unit of a multi-sectoral unit. So that's very interesting to hear. Maybe let's continue on this understanding of food system transformation at the country setting by coming to Minister Rawar to understand India's and the state of Maharashtra's perspective. So food system transformation is really globally hot topic and we discussed a lot. How relevant is this concept for India and the state of Maharashtra, and how is your policy approaches have been formed?
Thank you, Sunay, for this is a very important question. Food system transformation is highly relevant today, both for India as a whole and for the state of Maharashtra, which is also one of the largest states of India. Agriculture continues to be a critical pillar of our economy, food security and rural livelihoods. In India, nearly 45% of the workforce depends on agriculture and allied sectors, and the sector contributes around 18% of the country's GDP. India is also among the world's largest producers of agricultural commodities, including cereals, milk, fruits, and vegetables. However, as production has expanded, the policy focus is gradually shifting from simply increasing output to building food systems that are more efficient, resilient, and market-linked. Food system transformation therefore means looking at the entire agriculture value chain, from production to storage, processing, logistics, markets, consumption, and now nutrition value. That's what we're talking of now. This shift is important because improving farmer incomes today depends not only on the higher production, but also on better value addition, stronger supply chains, and improved market integration. On the other side, the same time, post-harvest losses and gaps in logistics and infrastructure continue to affect efficiency and farmer returns. At the national level, the Government of India has undertaken several important initiatives to strengthen agriculture value chains. Programs such as e-NAM, the e-auctions, the e-national agricultural market has been established, the Agricultural Infrastructure Fund has been established, and the PMFME, the Prime Minister Formalization of Micro Food Processing Enterprises scheme, are helping promote digital market integration, post-harvest infrastructure, and food processing capacity, thereby increasing the value by a couple of notches up. Within the broader national context, Maharashtra has a particularly important role to play, the state I belong to. The state contributes around 14% of India's total GDP, making it one of the country's most important economic engines. Maharashtra also has a strong and diverse agriculture base and is a major producer of horticulture crops, fruits, vegetables, cotton, pulses, and oilseeds. Of course, you all must have heard about the world famous Alfonso mangoes, the Nasik grapes. Having said that, because of its strong horticulture sector and of course the proximity to major ports and export gateways, Maharashtra has significant potential to emerge as a major hub for agriculture trade and exports. Recognizing this opportunity, the government of Maharashtra has adopted a more value chain oriented approach to agriculture development. Rather than focusing only on production, we are working to strengthen the entire ecosystem, from farmers and farm organizations to logistics, processing, and markets. One important area of reform has been in the agriculture markets. The state has designed several major agriculture markets as market of national importance, and reforms are being implemented to promote one nation, one market vision. Through the introduction of a unified single trading license, traders can now operate across multiple markets, help improve market integration and competition and better value. A second major priority in agri-logistics infrastructure. Under the Maharashtra logistics policy, the state is promoting investments in cold chains, pack houses, grading and sorting facilities, and integrated logistics hubs, which are particularly important for horticulture and other perishable commodities. Looking ahead, Maharashtra is also exploring the development of a modern, international, world-class agriculture market in the Mumbai region. Given Mumbai's strong connectivity through ports, airports, and logistic networks, such a platform could serve as a major gateway linking farmers, processors, exporters, and global buyers. Overall, food system transformation in India and Maharashtra means moving from production-centric model to market-oriented and value chain-driven agriculture system. By strengthening infrastructure, modernizing markets, and expanding global trade linkages, we can build food systems that are more efficient, resilient, and more rewarding to farmers, making the world a food-secured place. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Rawal. I also cover India and I work intensively in India, so good to hear about the ENAM and the marketing support. And those of you who understand India, you know that Maharashtra's importance in agriculture and horticulture, and I think that reflects in his speech about the importance of marketing, logistics, and the value addition through the infrastructure development. Now moving to Vice Minister Watanabe, maybe building on this food system transformation concept, Japan has long been at the forefront of innovations and the policy, agricultural policy reforms. So we would like to hear about the current key priorities of Japanese government's agricultural policy. And if there are challenges, what are the factors that addressing these policy challenges in Japan?
Thank you, Sunai, for the good question. Japan places a strong emphasis on enhancing both the productivity and long-term sustainability of agriculture and food systems. In 2021, we launched the Midori strategy, a comprehensive approach designed to address climate change, biodiversity loss, and resource constraints while ensuring stable and resilient food production. Under this Midori strategy, we established 14 KPIs, including achieving net zero emissions in the agriculture sector and reducing food loss by 50%. To meet these goals, Japan is implementing a combination of legislative reforms, targeted budget measures, and tax incentives that encourage the adoption of sustainable technology and practices. Our work under the Midori centers on two priority approaches. First, we are strengthening collaboration across the entire supply chain. Sustainable food systems require coordinated action from all actors, from farmers, processors, distributors, retailers, and consumers. By promoting shared responsibility across the value chain, we aim to achieve more impactful and scalable transformation. Second, we are balancing necessary regulations with strong incentives for private sector innovation. It's equally important to create an enabling environment that accelerates new solutions in smart agriculture, low emission technologies, and circular resource use. Japan is also committed to promoting sustainability beyond our borders, recognizing the shared challenges across the Asian monsoon region. We have launched the Japan-ASEAN Midori strategy. Through this partnership, we are working with ASEAN member states to advance climate-resilient, low-emission and environmentally sound agricultural development, including knowledge sharing, capacity building, and collaborative pilot projects. In closing, we believe that transforming food systems is a shared global challenge. But we can create new opportunities for innovation and cooperation. We remain committed to working with our partners to build a more sustainable and resilient future. Thank you.
That's very rich information in a very short time, I would say. And it's impressive to hear some of these targets like net zero emissions from the agriculture sector related also, and food loss by 50%. And wow, yes. And since you also mentioned about the sustainable food systems, maybe I will continue the question with the Vice Minister staying on this. As also investment specialist and working on the agriculture transformation, system transformation, we have to work with the science. The agriculture is based on the science as well. So ecological transformation usually takes long time. And maybe I would say 5 to 7 years at least, we need to wait for the ecological transformation. At the same time, as we design the investment projects, we also have to deal with the reality of taxpayers' resources we are investing in and have to generate impactful result quite short time. Our project period might be 5 to 7 years. So how do we deal with this gap of science, agroecology, and real maybe political or policy-driven changes?
Thank you, Sunai, for your good question. It's certainly true that the environmental and social challenges we face today cannot be solved through short-term policy cycles alone. They require consistent medium to long-term strategies that guide action over many years. For this reason, I believe that the first essential step is to share a long-term vision that all stakeholders can align with. In Japan's case, although government budgets are allocated on an annual basis, our Midori strategy provides a clear long-term policy framework with KPIs extending toward 2030 or even 2050. This enables us to pursue the strategy, phased action necessary to build a sustainable model of agriculture and food systems, regardless of year-to-year budget process. At the same time, we recognize that international cooperation requires continuity. Therefore, in working with international organizations and partner countries, Japan is designing annual budget measures that still enable medium-term collaboration. This includes multi-year funding commitments for specific projects, even when the budget process requires annual approval. In practice, this approach allows us to support long-term capacity building, infrastructure development, and sustainable technical cooperation. In short, a long-term vision paired with flexible public financial planning is essential to tackling the complex transition required for sustainable agriculture. Japan remains committed to pursuing this approach, both domestically and through strong international partnership. Thank you.
Really, thank you very much for this. I find it extremely interesting to hear about the long-term vision and KPIs, and then for the short term of the annual budget. That's how you balance between this agroecological timeline and the policy challenges. Maybe staying on this same topic of the science maybe versus the public policy, I'm also curious to hear about Timor-Leste and India's case. Could I invite maybe Mr. Lawar to share your view?
Thank you, Sunay, for the follow-up. I believe intersection of science and public policy is exactly where the future of food systems will be shaped. Agriculture is fundamentally science-based. So public policy today cannot rely on convention, intuition, or legacy approaches. It has to be increasingly rooted in evidence, data, field-level realities, and analytics. For example, when we designed the ADB-backed magnet framework, we did not choose interventions randomly. We began with the detailed mapping study to identify specific value chain gaps, whether in planning material, post-harvest handling, processing, logistics, or market access. Similarly, in Maharashtra, initiatives such as Maha Agri AI policy and Mahavistar AI reflect our effort to use technology and data more systematically in agriculture decision making. But as policymakers, we must also remember that science alone is not enough. Science can tell us what works and how to do it. Public policy must decide why it matters, who should benefit first, and how to ensure inclusion. So in my view, science and policy must work together, hand in hand. Science gives us the tools, but public policy ensures those tools reach every farmer, including small holders, women farmers, and those who are most vulnerable. In Maharashtra, that is the balance we are trying to build. Evidence-based policy, but with inclusion at the center.
Excellent, excellent remarks. And I also find that your final kind of statements of the public policy and how the science-based decision-making has to come together, and public policy's role is really explain why it matters and how it can be more inclusive. I would take that as the lesson. And can I also invite now then Vice Prime Minister Asanami to share Timor-Leste's perspective maybe, or your own, on the science versus public policy?
Yeah, we anchor long-term vision and then strategy in our long-term development plan, ensuring continue across the administration. We also design programs that provide the short-term gains aligned with the strategy. We also draw inspiration from the partners whose experience demonstrate how to sustain investment over decades can produce lasting environmental and agricultural resilience. So we work together to the partner from Australia, from Europe, European Union, like intervention for the good and quality the seed, and also we work together the National University to continue how to investigation, how to innovation, and the quality intervention is important. So the national policy, we integrate everybody to give the perspective and to give the intervention. So we have national strategy planning. The 3 pillars important in the national strategy planning is agriculture, livestock, forestry, and fishery, and also of tourism and oil and gas. That's why the agriculture is the key pillar in the process of the state and nation building. But the problem is how to transform. That's why science and scientific is continue important. We have one institution focused for the scientific, and then national university and also another private university. We have participate together in the cross-line coordination, like Constantil and also task force. We not only UN agency and national and international NGO, but also the university intellectual we invite to discuss together. So we know that in the process of the difficult time to the state and the civilian, we invite everybody to participate. Thank you.
Okay, so we so far discussed about the country's food system transformation and maybe the value chains. Minister Lauber, I actually want to come back on one of your remarks, and because when we go to the countries and because of the system transformation really engages agroecological change, more sustainable production, we often also emphasize, but a lot of farmers, whenever we visit, they talk about marketing, give us access to the markets. So in Maharashtra, I'm aware that this is really key topic for the interest of the government. So how you have been addressing these market access issues, what kind of policies and initiatives have been quite useful or impactful?
In Maharashtra, our experience has shown that market access is not only about helping farmers sell produce. It is about enabling them to participate in the value chain in a stronger and more profitable way. Very often, the real bottlenecks do not arise only at the point of sale. They begin much earlier with limited business knowledge, weak aggregation, lack of post-harvest infrastructure, weak market intelligence, and insufficient direct links with serious buyers. So through the ADB-backed Magnet initiative, we have tried to address these bottlenecks in an integrated manner. First, we focused on farmers and FPOs capacity building. So FPOs is farmer producer organizations. We had a couple of many organizations. We built them. We recognized that to access better markets, farmers need to understand business opportunities. They have to be trained. Buyer requirements, quality standards, and the possibilities of value addition. So Magnet supported training and handling of FPOs to strengthen their market orientation and help them engage with buyers more confidently. Secondly, we worked on infrastructure and technology access. In many cases, farmers lose value because they are able to sell only raw produce. Under Magnet, we supported access to infrastructure and technology so that FPOs and farmer enterprises can undertake primary and secondary processing, improve grading, sorting, and packaging, and create better quality marketable products. This is important because once farmers move even one step up the value chain, their market opportunities expand significantly. Third, we emphasize planned market development. Rather than isolated market linkages, under the project, market access plans were prepared for 15 focus crops, and business development plans were developed for several farmer producer organizations. This helped FPOs approach markets in a more strategic way, based on products, buyers, pricing, and logistics, rather than relying only on traditional channels. At the same time, we are also developing an FPO management software platform that will facilitate buyer-seller matchmaking, enable FPOs to showcase their produce and capacities, and allow institutional buyers to directly connect with organized farmer groups. Fourth, we actively created direct market linkages. Direct market linkages were established for 128 FPOs, including 13 women-owned or women-led FPOs, with 17 institutional market players. This is important because direct linkage reduces intermediation, improves transparency, and gives farmer organizations stronger negotiating power. We also conducted several buyer-seller meets, which is our regular routine work which we keep doing, with participation of around 220 FPOs and more than 50 institutional buyers. At the same time, we made a conscious effort to ensure stronger inclusion of women-led enterprises. Finally, we are also looking beyond domestic markets and promoting exports to premium markets. Magnet has supported the development of export protocols for banana, pomegranate, and chili. And trial export facilitation has helped pharma organizations better understand the requirements of premium international markets. So our key lesson from Maharashtra is that market access improves when we move beyond isolated interventions. Farmers need capacity, infrastructure, value addition, direct buyer linkages, and support for premium and export markets. Through Magnet, we are trying to bring these elements together so that farmers and FPOs can participate in markets in a more organized, competitive, and rewarding way.
Okay, thank you very much. I think this resonates what you mentioned in the very beginning about the marketing and the infrastructure, the support, actually inspired by the success of the ADB Finance Magnet projects, where you are having this buyer-seller dialogue. In most of ADB Finance, the agriculture investment project in India, we are now introducing this buyer-seller meetings and arrangement, which is becoming very effective and highly appreciated by our development partners. Since we are a little bit running over the time, I will invite you to, in a very brief manner, 1 or 2 sentences about, this last question, what's your expectation of partnership with ADB and any role compared to the bilateral partnerships do you expect ADB's strong support for you?
Yeah, ADB is not just a financier, but also a strategy partner, helping scale integrate solution for the transformation agenda. Example, at ADB in Timor-Leste, we have 3 programs important. One is the rural resilience and the livelihood improvement sector project in Manatutu. So we started last year. And also coffee agroforestry livelihood improvement project. Here also Director General from the Agriculture here, maybe presentation detail afternoon. And also technical assistant to the Sanutrio. Yeah, is the support by the ADB and implementation by the WFP and working together the Minister of Social Affairs and then Minister of Health. So we very close discussion to ADB and also WFP, FIO also to continue strengthen partnership and mobilize, organize also financing and strengthen coordination to guarantee the food system in Timor-Leste.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Rawat?
Maharashtra has had a strong and productive partnership with the Asian Development Bank, especially through Magnet project, which is helping strengthen agriculture value chains and post-harvest infrastructure. From our experience, there are few key lessons from implementing ADB-supported projects. Firstly, strong project design with implementation flexibility. ADB-supported projects are built around clearly defined objectives, measurable indicators, and a structured implementation framework. At the same time, they allow enough flexibility to adapt to field realities and changing market conditions. This balance is very important in agriculture, where conditions on the ground can evolve quickly. Other important lesson in the public programs can successfully catalyze private investment. Under the Magnet Matching Grant Program, agribusiness enterprises are being supported to create facilities such as cold chains, pack houses, and processing units. Finally, I can say ADB has strong monitoring mechanism with a clear focus on inclusion. Regular review missions and monitoring mechanisms help identify challenges early and keep implementation aligned with development objectives. At the same time, ADB supported projects place strong emphasis on inclusion, especially of women, so that the benefits of development reach a wider section of society. Overall, our experience shows that partnership with institutions like ADB brings together financing, technical expertise, and implementation discipline. For a state like Maharashtra, this combination is extremely valuable in advancing modern, resilient, and market-linked agricultural development. We appreciate this valued partnership, looking for further and stronger bonds in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think me and our colleagues take this coverage very proudly and thankfully. Now, can I invite, Vice Minister Watanabe?
Thank you, Sunai. International organizations play a critical role in driving the transformation of food systems. Institutions like the ADB have unique access to global financing and broad international networks. In this regard, the ADB's recently announced $40 billion commitment will serve as a powerful catalyst. Its significance lies not only in the scale of investment, but also in its ability to attract additional financing from both governments and private sectors. Japan's Minister of Agriculture just signed MOC with the ADB this morning. We will promote long-term cooperation to advance sustainable agriculture and food systems with the ADB in the Asia-Pacific. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this rich discussions and kindly sharing your experience and views with us. Thank you. So some gift ceremony is arranged by participants, so we will have that moment very quickly. Vice Prime Minister Asanami, please. Yeah. And Vice Minister Watanabe, please.
Yes.
No, no.
What you ask me? Yes. You ask me.
Now, Minister Lawar. And Vice Minister Watanabe. Okay. Sure, please. Thank you. Okay. Now we are moving to our second panel, which will focus on development pathways and global partnerships that can accelerate to food system transformation. Moderating this discussion is Professor Shenggen Fan, Chair Professor at China Agricultural University and Dean of the Academy of Global Food Economics and Policy. Professor Fan is a globally recognized leader in food policy research and previously served as Director General of IFRI. Please.
Well, good morning. I almost said good afternoon. So really great pleasure to moderate this session. We have heard that we are experiencing so-called perfect storm or political crisis. I just wanted to mention a couple of numbers. The hunger. I have not heard the number of hungry people in the world. It's close to 700 million. But more importantly, it's the people who suffer from hidden hunger. It's 5 billion people. So they may have enough to eat, but they don't eat right stuff. So that sort of lack of micronutrients is a challenge. We have heard that the global crisis one after another, from Ukraine, Russia, to Venezuela, now to Strait of Hormuz. Just let you know that I have worked on food crisis for many years. I'm afraid this time, this crisis will not be better. We have heard that oil price is already rising to almost $100 per barrel. We know that when the oil price goes up to $90 per barrel, biofuel production will kick in. Further, the price will go up. So definitely, we are experiencing some sort of I don't know whether it's a perfect storm or political crisis, but definitely the whole world food and nutrition security will be compromised. So we have 6 panelists compared to 3, so we have a double burden. But I'm pretty sure we will have double pleasure if all these panelists will follow the guidelines. So these 6 panelists are global players or global leaders. So the first panelist is the WFP Assistant Executive Director for Partnership and Innovation, Rennie Deco Camera. So you can gradually walk to the stage. I think her title has 2 keywords, partnership and innovations. This almost covers everything we have discussed over here. Then we have another panelist from IFAD, International Fund for Agricultural Development, Donald Brown. He is Associate Vice President. Welcome, Donald. The third is Maximo Torero. I don't know whether he's here. Maximo is here. Great, welcome. So Maximo is Chief Economist from a food and agriculture organization. You know, the FAO has been monitoring, tracking all the numbers I've just mentioned. And then the next panelist, let me look at the, it's Jo Swinnen. Where's Jo? Director General of International Food Policy Research Institute. And next speaker, our panelist, Lawrence Haddad. So he is Executive Director of Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition, or GAIN. Okay. Now the last speaker in this panelist, great, is Ivan Pinto, the Director General of International Rice Research Institute. It's about, 100 kilometers, maybe not 100 kilometers away from here. So we definitely will shorten this session. We know that small is beautiful, short is sweet. Now, my first question to every one of them, just keep it brief. Considering all these challenges we have right now, So what sort of changes you have made in your organization? You're all the global UN agencies, CGIAR, global institutions. We know that everybody has suffered from funding cut by 20%, 30%, maybe except FAO. FAO maybe is doing better, but definitely CGIAR, WFP, and GAIN have suffered quite a bit. So what sort of changes you have made? Just like what Michael said, to the more with less. Should we start from, maybe from this? I usually don't follow the order. Lawrence, why don't you begin to kick off?
I was very excited to see Michael Kramer's picture above my name, because I was thinking, maybe this is a chance to get a Nobel Prize in economics, but...
well, in addition to your World Food Prize.
Exactly, thank you. I guess again, we are, I love it when you go off script, this is great. I guess again, we are really trying to double down on new partnerships, trying to think, aid is dead, but long live aid, because the old model is kind of gone. But there's a new model that will always need overseas development assistance. So the question is, what do we do with the scarce amounts of overseas development assistance that have alternative uses? So we have to use them to leverage, to catalyze, to multiply much bigger resource flows that are out there in the private sector and the IFIs and the DFIs and so on and so forth. So again, we're really focusing on we're already pretty good at leveraging private sector resources. So what more can we do to leverage private sector resources to increase access to healthier diets? That's what GAIN is all about. We work in 4 countries in Asia, 4 big ones, and 8 countries in Africa. And so, the only way you do that, Schengen, is to engage. Before I joined GAIN 10 years ago, I didn't really know much about the private sector. I thought it was just a funder. Of course, how wrong could I be? It's about leveraging those resources and aligning healthy diet outcomes with commercial outcomes. And later on, I'll give you a couple of examples.
Great. So leverage by engaging. Joe, your turn.
Yeah, thank you. We have, first of all, we had to reduce, because we had about 30%, 25%, 30% funding cut. So we had to make adjustments in our staff. We've done that very strategically, trying to double down on the things we think we really have a comparative advantage with. I mean, that's making strategic choices going further. I think the issue of engaging with the private sector that Lauren just explained is really important, I think, for the CGIAR as a whole. IFPRI as a policy institution is a little bit constrained there because if you think about policy discussion, there's conflict of interest on some issues when you get private sector funding. So we have to be careful there. But I think the other thing in terms of reaching out to new donors, I mean, the world is very different. This is not just a temporary blip. I mean, we really believe we're in a very different global system, and therefore we have to prepare ourselves. So we're doing a lot of investments in basically reaching out also in terms of indicator analysis, data development modeling on related to crises and to a volatile world and what that implies for the future and for the world.
Great. So restructuring.
Can I come in very quickly?
Sure, very quick.
Just something that Yo said reminded me about being strategic and prioritizing. It's not about doing more with less, I don't think. I think it's about doing better with less.
Better. Okay, great. Maximo.
No, thank you, Schengen. And it doesn't matter how much we get cut or not in terms of financing. What matters is how much money is going to the countries. And that is being reduced, and that's the problem. The ODA is going to be reduced across the board. It's not just one country. So our job is to try to find solutions to the bottlenecks that these countries are facing, because we really want them to be able to perform better. We want to reduce the more than 300 million people that are in hunger in Asia. So for that, our job has been to accelerate the process of bringing tools to try to assess and increase resilience. That means to have a system of elements that are essential to be preventive. Early warning systems, we have developed we call it the situation room, which is try to bring 12 risks and assess at which velocity we can predict those risks of climate, as Michael was saying this morning, but also risk associated to pests and diseases that will be affected by climate events and also, of course, conflict. That helps the countries to be preventive. Second, we need also to increase the capacity of absorption of countries. And that's why we are working with partners, and partnerships here is crucial to be able to attract and improve social protection across the world through the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty. We are hosting the support mechanism of the Global Alliance so that we can bring what has been already evaluated and shown to be successful to help the most vulnerable people that will be affected. But also we need to bring science and innovation. And I thought in the morning this was really strong. We need to bring varieties, work with our partners in the CIR and other agencies so that farmers can be resilient with what they produce to weather shocks that we need will be happen, but also resilience in terms of logistics that we are seeing today in the crisis of the war that is happening in Iran and the Strait of Hormuz. It's a logistical issue which could create a significant problem. We need to find alternative routes, alternative sources for fertilizers, alternative technologies for fertilizers and to use them more efficiently. So we need to be very responsive to those type of shocks, and that's what capacity of absorption means, and that's where we have been investing all our efforts in the last years so that we can balance across countries which are doing well and countries which are not necessarily doing so well.
Great. So bring tools to the country, bring partners to the country, really help the countries. Donald.
Thanks, and good morning to everyone. So a few themes, not, I wouldn't say emerging, but being reinforced by everyone, resources, private sector, and tools. From an EFAD perspective, on the tools side of things, we've been very happy to work in partnership with the World Bank, with FAO, with the Asian Development Bank, with people like GAIN actually, to look at a tool for analyzing the full flows of resources going to food systems rather than agriculture, so that countries actually can really start taking decisions about the entirety of investment, public, private, etc., on food systems. And I think that's a big change because we tend to look at the world through a lens of agriculture, not food systems. And this very much reinforces the point on partnerships. No one can be doing this alone. We really do have to collaborate, not compete, but collaborate, which brings us to the resource point. There are limited resources, getting less, so we need to make them work better, and that will only happen by collaboration. And in that context, from an EFAD perspective, one of the big changes that we've made over the last few years is really starting to look at investments in the private sector as complementarity to our sovereign portfolio. I mean, we actually have got a portfolio of about 10 billion, of which a significant amount already of the sovereign portfolio works with the private sector. We have over 100,000 different engagements with the private sector in that sovereign operations, and it's leveraging in about 1.5 billion. But where we're trying to change is to also invest directly in the private sector through our non-sovereign operations. And obviously, others are doing that. We have the big players, the World Bank, Asian Development Bank, etc. on that. But I think where we feel we add value is, as EFAD's mandate is very much about the first mile, there is a whole set of small and medium enterprises that service small producers in the first mile. And let's face it, much of the world's food production comes from the first mile, but there is very little private sector investment in those. And that's where we see and it's not just money, these are key actors. So it's not about leveraging the private sector, it's really engaging them.
Great. Again, once again, bring tools and even other active collaborators to help smallholders. The first mile, so this is a new word, it's not last mile, the first mile, to really kick in, to initiate some sort of a process that can really make a positive change. Okay, now, WFP, I know you're under tremendous pressure now. How can you do things differently?
Well, good morning, and it's a great pleasure and honor to be here with all of you. A lot has already been said. I think I'll just reinforce a few of them. In WFP, we're doers. We're present all over the world, and we work the whole spectrum from humanitarian to resilience to development work. But I would argue to your point, I think, you know, that we want to do better for less. The first challenge has been accepting that we're not going to be able to do everything. And hence, we have a massive role in advocating for hundreds of millions who remain acutely food insecure. So we cover what we can, and we share, and we continue to advocate that everyone else needs to step in and also respond to hunger across the world. So accepting, I think, a shift in roles is significant for all of us. Doing it with everyone, and to me the collaboration goes into not just the public-private partnerships, but it's the local private sector for WFP. Our investments are massive in the supply chain, in local suppliers, and making sure that that is integrated with governments. And expertise as well as resource. It's not just about the money, it's about expertise that many in the private sector can bring to improve our processes. And then I would say, finally, we pivot very strongly on innovation and technology. We always have. WFP's strength is its innovation. The first food drop that happened in the world in the 60s, we did. So we've never stopped innovating, and now, powered by technology, we're improving processes, we're revising our footprint, but fundamentally, we rely on all of you sitting here and everyone in this audience and the governments to work better together. So
I'll come back on the innovation part. Your title has the innovation there. Now, yes, I think better with less. It's not just more with less. It's a very, very good word. Yvonne.
Thank you, Schengen, and good morning to everybody. I think there are two lenses by which we look at the future from an institutional perspective. So clearly, we were fortunate enough to craft a new strategy last year. That new strategy is really focusing on our comparative advantage, focusing on prioritizing what we do best, focusing on partnering with those who are the best in class, and offering, and I want to really emphasize this, a sum of the parts approach, where our innovation pipelines, our proof of concepts, our demonstrations, and our scaling opportunities are linked through the priorities of the national governments with whom we work, and working to leverage the private sector to be part of that mix. I think also working with many other development institutions, I'm delighted to know that we work with many of those up here, but to ensure that we are better at what we do, to ensure we bring modernization into how we optimize our costs and contributions, but also to ensure that we learn from one another so that the information and the knowledge that we generate begins to inform us together. So I think for an institution that's 65 years old, in fact 66 this year, we have tremendous amounts of data regionally and globally. That is the currency as we go forwards.
Very good.
And focusing on the skills to make that happen is a key thing.
So the new strategy, by better prioritizing and work with the private sector. I think this is a cross-cutting sort of answer from any one of you. Doing better with less by working with others, particularly the private sector. So let me zoom in to any one of you, some of the deeper dive. Let me start with IFAD, Donald. So IFAD obviously has invested quite a bit in agricultural investment, rural development. So in your mind, what area that has been underinvested? What is the bottleneck to tackle that?
Thank you. So maybe just developing the last round. So for us, the underinvestment has been in private sector actors within the value chain. And as I say, from IFAD's perspective, that's those that really service the small farmers in the first mile. So they are often seen as high risk, seen as too small for ticket sizes that many of the DFIs and some of the impact investors will look at. Very often it's sort of 5 million or under that is needed to really grow these actors. And I'm talking about SMEs, input suppliers, processors, these sorts of enterprises. And for us, we call that the unfunded impact potential. And that's where there's been little investment. Where IFAD has something to offer is they're often enterprises whom we've worked directly with through our sovereign operations for maybe 10 or 20 years. So while they don't have the collateral and the books that banks and others would like to see, we know them as very solid partners. We know them as very reliable. We know them as very good guardians of investment. And so we can take that risk, but it's an area which is really, really underinvested in, and that's where we're trying to crowd it in. And probably the second point I would make in that context is you need to really look at deliberate investments where you're trying to find the one or two areas of constraint, ecosystem sort of transformation makers, where you could really release the opportunities by one or two strategic investments, because otherwise you can scatter a lot of money and not really make those system changes that are necessary. And maybe my last point within that.
What are these two strategic investments? Just very briefly.
Sorry?
You said it was strategic investment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so this is just what I was coming on to. So the way we do that is we look at our sovereign portfolio in a country, and we do the analytics on our sovereign portfolio where we often have $200, $300 million of investment to look at the one or two key constraints that keep coming up within the portfolio where we can actually look at a particular investment, be it seed, be it something which is really constraining and comes out of that portfolio analysis, so that we look at that complementarity where the non-sovereign investment really reinforce and adds value to the sovereign investment rather than it's just a non-sovereign investment on its own. And I think that's where we add the value.
Very good. Excellent. Now, Maximo, you know, the FAO is monitoring the global food system changes, particular shocks. Now, so from your perspective, what policies are most urgent to strengthen resilience? And particularly give us a very good example that a country has successfully dealt with all these shocks to be resilient.
Sure. Let me start first with what you were saying, better with less. I think we're missing a word there, because it's not just better. I can do with very little better. And the concept of scaling up is central. So it has to be more and better with less, because we also need to do more.
More better and less.
Exactly. So I think we need to scale up. We cannot keep playing with the small interventions that are successful. So that's why we need to be careful. Second, I am, as always, and including us, of course, I am surprised that finally we figure out that private sector is there and we need to work with it. And that's something that is wrong. Private sector has always been there. We were not being able to link with it, which is the problem. And that's what we need to figure out, and how we can link with them better so that we can really bring our technical evidence to them to operate and work. So it's not just that they appear suddenly and they are so important that of course they are important. They are the ones implementing most of the agri-food that we eat and the transformations in the field. Now, in terms of your specific questions of resilience, I think there are two main issues on resilience that are important. The first one is we cannot shut down our lights. What that means that we need information so that we can see better where we can be more effective and at a scale. And that's what I was referring to be preventive. We need to have early warning systems in place. And here is where we need a revolution in terms of how we see the early warning systems and how we link the early warning systems with the insurance systems. That's what we called bringing the insurance systems, especially reinsurance companies, to respond to probabilities of events happening rather than after the event has happened. And there is a lot of evidence. You were looking at evidence in terms of anticipatory action, 1 to 7. Every dollar I invest, $7 of return. But I need the private sector here with reinsurance systems, and that requires a transformation of the insurance systems, because today they are paying exposed, and that's too late to do anticipatory action. And yes, we are working on 3 policies right now with Munich Re and other companies to try to accelerate that process, so it's possible, but of course it requires a lot of technical information so that your models are predictive. The second one is the One Health, also preventive, that has shown to be very impactful, has shown to be able to help and avoid things like what happened in COVID-19. So we need to keep scaling up One Health approach, and I think looking at that very carefully is the way forward, and there was a fund that was created for this on the G7, on the G20, sorry, that we need to keep scaling up. The second component of resilience is capacity of absorption. And here we have a lot of evidence, a lot of randomized controlled trials, especially on social protection. We know what works, and we know how to do that. The important thing is to scale up across countries. And Asia and Africa especially will be central to deploy social protection at the best technology that we know, the best experiences that we have validated. But then after that comes how we invest. And here is where we have to learn more on how to operate with the private sector. We are deploying the Hand in Hand initiative in 84 countries right now. It's an initiative that FAO has led, the Director General, which basically we try to bring geospatial information to do better analysis on territorial approaches with countries. It's country-led and country-driven. But the trick of this, and where we hope we are able to succeed with private sector, is to do technical de-risking. So if I can do financial de-risking, we can do technical de-risking. Also IFC can do financial de-risking, ADB can do financial de-risking. But by bringing technical de-risking, then we are also reducing the risk for the projects because we provide technical information to companies where projects are profitable, sustainable, and we can bring innovation and technology to those projects so that we can do more and better with less. So that combination, those three legs of technical de-risking, financial de-risking, and bringing solutions through with private sector, I think could be a way to accelerate, which was initially how we accelerate this process and working with the banks to try to achieve that. But that will require to bring all the innovation we have and will require also to assure that trade is working because there is no way in which we can increase resilience if we don't have trade. There are two dimensions of resilience. One is amount of trading partners I have and how much I can produce locally. But going to the extreme of only production locally won't allow me to have the access to healthy diets that Dargain was talking about because we need diversity and a country cannot produce everything. And if they do, they can face a shock, a climate shock, and then everything is gone. So both dimensions will be extremely important, and that's why we need to keep supporting trade.
Great, thank you. Maybe you come back later. Give me one good example of a country. Now, I also like Maximo to challenge other speakers, so more, better for less. So, and also the private sector is there. The question is how we are going to engage. Now, Yo, from your perspective, now, IPRI has worked on policy issues. So what would be a development pathway that have been proved most effective for transforming food systems? Maybe that's a too big a question, too broad a question to ask. And what are the most misunderstood trends in global food system today? And what emerging innovation should policymakers pay closer attention to? Maybe my question is longer than your answers, but keep your answer short.
Okay, it's certainly broader than one can answer because it's a very, very general question. I think overall, if you look, over the past decades, we've seen that there's been tremendous progress made across the world and also certainly in Asia. Asia has in a way led the world in a number of these areas. There's been a very serious reversal in the last decade. But if you look at food system transformation, looking at reduction of hunger, improvement of diets, more sustainability, resilience, etc., it's very uneven. Okay, I think the biggest success is clearly in the reduction of hunger, improvement of food security. But if you look at the nutrition situation, it's much less promising or much less optimistic. As you started off with saying, I think also in terms of the sustainability, it's gone the wrong way in a number of areas. So I think there clearly, looking forward from a strategic perspective, the issue is really identify synergies in the transformation and also trade-offs. And the trade-offs are really important to identify because you have to bring them in explicitly. I think you have to bring them in explicitly for two reasons. One is from the economic and the social perspective, to make sure that people are not left behind in this process. For example, I think a lot of the innovations also have, for example, have gender effects. So I make sure that this is clearly understood and basically you balance this, you address this explicitly. It's also very important from a political economy, from a political perspective. I mean, a number of areas in a number of parts of the world, there's been very good strategies developed. Think about the Green Deal in Europe, for example, but because of the negative income distributional effect, there's been very strong political opposition to it. So if you do not build it in explicitly, you cannot take this thing forward, I think. I think this kind of policy coordination, which is really important, also, and the bundling of policies or approaches also holds at the level of innovation, because we need to keep investing in producing new innovation, but there's a ton of innovations around which are not adopted, and they're not adopted because people may not know about it, or because they don't have access to the markets of the innovations, or access to finance, which you talk about, and the insurance issue. I mean, there's a number of these new ways of doing things are just more risky than the old ones, and therefore are not adopted if the insurance systems are not there, where Maximo talked about. And then the last one is, again, the income distributional effect. It may benefit some more than others, and some may actually be hurt by it. So again, we need to address this thing. And so I think that the bundling, the coordination is really crucial.
Yeah, so political economy issues, you have different stakeholders, different actors in the whole food systems. So some may lose, some may benefit. So how can we make sure that everybody could benefit from it? So that will tackle some of the challenges we face. Now, before I ask Lawrence, I think we have 2 microphones here. If you want to ask questions, please make line up over there. So after Lawrence, I will ask audience to ask tricky, important, critical question to our panelists to address. Please do. Now, Lawrence, now, obviously, you are very much focused on nutrition. You're from a very good economist to almost half nutritionist, maybe 100% now. I claim that I'm half. Maybe you're more than me now. Now, so how can we make sure that nutrition will be mainstream, integrated into our food systems? I mean, this is a general question. And you said, well, there are many actors. How can we incentivize all the actors, players in the food system really pay attention to nutrition? Because, I'm convinced nutrition is the final development outcome. It's not how much you produce, how much income you earn. It is how much I eat, how good diets I have to support me, to support my family. So Lawrence.
Yeah, I mean, it's also a key input into the development process as well. So it's an outcome and an input, very important.
Oh, that's okay. I said, please go ahead. If anybody wanted to ask any questions, I didn't see anybody to line up over there. So
can I finish?
Sorry. No, sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Just to make sure that they have enough time to prepare themselves.
Okay. Now I'm worried. I forgot what I was going to say now. I'm going to have to criticize my good friend Maximo, because he's having a go at me.
Well, this is not an EPRI debate, by the way.
So Maximo, of course, I don't mean we don't have a smaller impact, but I just mean we're focused, we're prioritizing, we're not doing a million things, we're doing a few things. Yeah. Look, I'm an economist. I don't even pretend to be a nutritionist. There are some fantastic nutritionists in the audience. But I think being an economist gives one a perspective on nutrition, and it helps you sell nutrition to people who don't think about it much. And I think mainstreaming nutrition is about mindsets. So if you look at the definition of food security, if I can remember it, it's about ensuring access to food at all times for all people, but the food has to be safe, it has to be adequate, and it has to be nutritious. And it's incredible how many people think that nutrition is just the icing on the cake. But any of you who've made a cake, you know that without eggs, there is no cake, right? Nutrition is the egg that makes the cake. It keeps the cake together. It gives it structure. It gives it a form. Without the egg, you just have crumbs. So nutrition is absolutely baked into the cake. It's not the icing. And you won't believe how many people who should know better, I have to explain the difference between hunger and malnutrition. Of course, you can reduce hunger nutritiously, or you can reduce it in a way that just focuses on calories that are pretty empty. So we have lots of choices. Now, governments have lots of choices about how to do that. I'll give you a few. Ag R&D, agricultural research and development. Actually, the CGR just produced a really great paper on this, a report from the FRESH program, shows that international agricultural research and development, 2 to 3% of all of that is spent on fruits and vegetables, right? Fruits and vegetables are the ultimate no-regret investment in the food system. They're great for healthy diets and all forms of malnutrition. They're good for a whole range of environmental outcomes. They're a great source of jobs in the food system. So that's one example. Procurement policy is another example. Governments are one of the biggest buyers of food in whatever country you're in, right? They buy it for schools, they buy it for social protection programs, they buy it for a whole range of things. It doesn't cost much more to add pulses to whatever you're purchasing, or fortified food, or vegetables. So procurement policy is another area where you can have a massive, massive impact. You can have a massive impact if you're a government by facilitating the kinds of things Donald was talking about, financing facilities for small and medium enterprises in the food system. They are too big for microfinance. They're too risky and too small for formal finance. So who's going to service this hidden middle? I forget what term you used, Donald, but I'm going to steal it if you remind me what it is. It was good. No, it was like a hidden impact or something like that. Unfunded impact, there you go. That's good. So we again have set up the Nutritious Food Financing Facility that I very much hope the Asian Development Bank will adapt and adopt and improve on for Asia. That's an example of something governments can do. And finally, the other thing governments can do to set the tone, procurement sets the tone, but if any of you have kids in the audience, you'll know that any public health campaign to get people to eat more food, they're usually pretty terrible, right? They usually say, they boil down to, you should eat more fruits and vegetables because they're good for you. My kids, when I tell them that, they just roll their eyes and don't. They say, get a life. So we have to learn the tricks of the private sector. Private sector is brilliant at selling us stuff we don't need and didn't even know we wanted until they told us we wanted it. And they do that by linking their product or service to something we want. So we have to link healthy diets and healthy foods to something parents, families want. And in one of the countries we worked in, we developed a campaign with the government called These Foods Made Me. So we asked parents, what is it that you want most in life? They said, we want a good career, a good outcome for our kids. We want our kids to be able to become doctors, lawyers, economists, nutritionists, whatever. So we said, okay, let's get artists and musicians. And so we said, let's get a bunch of people who are quite well known within the country, and let's ask them about the foods they consumed when they were kids. And you have a picture of the well-known person in a country with the foods they ate when they were kids. And the strap line is very simple. These foods made me. Nothing about health, nothing about nutrition, nothing about this being good for you. And these are the kinds of things that governments can do to mainstream healthy diets in their food systems.
Great. So I learned quite a bit on nutrition. So egg, well, nutrition is an egg in making the cake. Did you hear that?
Keeps it all together.
The more investment on nutrition in R&D, right? So next CGIR, have we invested enough?
No.
On nutrition? Well,
no, you haven't.
Then the procurement, public procurement, or the private procurement, right? School feeding programs, hospitals, or even the public distribution food system. Can we procure more nutritious foods? And finally, I think integrate nutrition into our daily life. I know in many countries they have these so-called online celebrities. Can we, tell us what they have eaten to make them succeed? Now, do we have anybody from the audience? Okay, here. Irish, introduce yourself.
Mike, okay. Thank you so much. I'm Irish Bagilat from the Asian Farmers Association for Sustainable Rural Development. And I think I've heard many of the things that we also, of course, advocate within the Farmers Network. We work also with IFAD and FAO, of course. So my question, you've mentioned partnering with countries, and also you've mentioned doing more and better with less, and also there was a mention about social protection and SMEs. And I wonder, or I'm interested to know within the framework of your organization, where you place the civil society organization, because definitely we can do more and better with less, and also with Farmers Association, who are strengthening the capacities of farmers. If we consolidate, we can engage, for example, in procurement, and also...
Great. So working with the civil society, we heard it, right? Farmers organization, we asked them to come back. Any other questions? I don't see it. Oh, okay, go ahead. Ponima, yes. Looks like I know everybody here. It's not working. Okay, now it's working out.
In a room of friends helping each other out with technology. Purnima Menon from IFPRI. So really interesting to hear about the discussions on ag R&D. But I think what we're looking for here is fundamentally a food systems transformation agenda to deliver a set of key outcomes that broadly point towards better diets, climate resilience, more incomes, equity. So I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on when and how are we going to get to a full-scale food systems transformation R&D agenda? What will that take, and who's going to finance that? Thank you.
Great, thank you. Han.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rangan, and the panelists. I have one comment and one question. Very glad to be here. I'm Hung Nguyen, as Regional Director for International Livestock Research Institute, one of the CJ. And in the room here, I'm so impressed to see many DG of CG and the club of IPRI people. I saw 1, 2, 3, 4 people, ex or current INRI people on the panel. So my comment from listening to the discussion from yesterday, from INRI working on livestock, I felt that livestock has been kind of missing in many discussions since yesterday, today. And when we talked about nutrition, obviously animal source food is important for this region. And I hope that livestock should be on the agenda. And linked to livestock, of course, in which again, we talked a lot about One Health. Asia is a hotspot of infectious disease, zoonotic diseases. So, Lawrence, you talked a lot about nutrition, but don't forget health aspect of the food system we are talking here. So now I have only one question. From research side, I'm listening about, I hear about 40 billions for the next years that ADB will invest in food system. It's a huge money. And, investing in R&D and research for many institutions, both in national and international organizations in Asia, I believe that is very important things to support ADB to realize these big expenses of 40 billion. Panels, many of you are DG and from research institute, how much would you expect? What percentage you would expect that ADB invest from?
Keep your question short. Yeah. I want to give the floor to scientists from World Vet, then we'll come back to our panel. But we still have 2 important panelists here, representing more than 50% of the whole world. They know that. So you see, they want to hear from you. But okay, I'll let you finish. Then we come back to 2 of you. Then we can begin to wrap up.
Thank you very much. My name is Delphine Larousse. I'm from the World Vegetable Center. And I would like to actually pick up on what Lawrence said on fruits and vegetables and maybe ask the other panelists where you see the biggest opportunities to elevate fruits and vegetables if we're really serious about not only resilient and sustainable food systems, but truly nutritious and healthy food systems as well. So if you have some concrete mechanisms in place or some opportunities, I would very much like to pick up on that. Thank you very much.
Great. So you have heard all these questions. Let me finish this round. Then I will ask each panelist to wrap up, particularly how you collaborate among yourself and with all these people in the room. Now, Ivan, obviously, rice is consumed by more than 4 billion, is it 4 billion, right? Half of the world population, the most important crop. So tell us, what has been the latest sort of innovations, or what plan do you have to make sure that we can produce more, better, and with less?
Thank you. I want to really start with Purnima's question, which is food systems transformation. We've talked quite a little bit about nutrition. What we haven't talked about are the hidden costs, the environmental costs. So when we talk about food systems transformation, we're not simply talking about more food. We're really talking about food that has a number of simultaneous outcomes. More nutritious food, more resilient food systems, and indeed these hidden environmental costs are also addressed. I think we talked a little bit about building farmer capability, and one of the questions related to that. These 3 elements must be integrated in how we actually deliver those transformed food systems, and the finance behind those 3 elements needs to be aligned at the same time. So I think we have moved on from the notion of more and better. The concept of that is multidimensional. So I think it's really critical we start to get serious about how we integrate these propositions, how we integrate our activities so that we form a functional value chain, and how we actually address the extent to which we've been able to achieve these by ensuring that we are quantifying the value of different food products, foodstuffs, and indeed how we make those available to farmers. I did want to say 2 things about rice. So rice certainly feeds somewhere between 3.5 and 4 billion people, but there are innovations at the genetic level that ensure that rice is fortified with iron, zinc, selenium, that rice has higher protein content to support fodder as a crop that builds muscles in animals as well as humans, that the circularity in that crop drives fruit and vegetable production and mushrooms. I'm not sure exactly how you classify mushrooms, depending on their variety, but we need to actually look at engage systems that drive value for multiple stakeholders at multiple levels. And if those can be structured in such a way to supply the people who need them the most, who have the least amount of voice, then I think that is the way that we should measure our success in transformed food systems. Working with ADB through something like the Clearinghouse enables research organizations to bring that emphasis to the debate. And I look forward to that, generating the kinds of results that meet some of the conditions we've outlined. Thank you.
Well,
Thanks, Yvonne.
Okay, obviously biofortification in rice can bring lots of sort of so-called more and better element. Just for your information, there are many other crops that can be biofortified. Mushroom, the Chinese scientists are working on biofortified mushroom because Chinese eat lots of mushrooms. So they take a good look at that. Now, Rennie, in your title, you have the innovation there. Now, how can you really mainstream innovation in WFP's operation? So yeah, normally we talk about technological innovations, all kinds of other innovations, but to use innovators to drive your operation. So what is the best practice from WFP?
Thanks a lot, really, for the question. And you know what we forgot when we started? To actually thank ADB for convening us here. So really much appreciation to the entire team. Before I even respond to that, I want to say I'd like to vote Lawrence for President of the World because of how you framed this whole nutrition argument and how I could convince my little boy, who when I tell him, eat these vegetables, they're good for your body. And he's like, Mama, maybe they're good for your body. My body doesn't like them. You know, so I was also thinking, to your point, if we have pictures of Ronaldo and what he eats, my boy will eat them. So we definitely need to hit the footballers soon. But a transformative agenda, an innovative agenda that has gone in WFP from a small program in the 1960s to a whole food system transformation agenda would be homegrown school meals. It brings so many of what we spoke to and about today together, and many of the questions actually that you asked. So I come from a storytelling culture, and I'll tell you this. In the 60s, we started school meals in parts of West Africa. It was part of an emergency, bring the kids into school, you know, bring them in so they can learn. By the 90s, we realized also that there's an agenda here on bringing girls into schools through these school meals. There's a retention agenda thanks to the research that went into this. When kids eat, they retain knowledge and information better. By the 2000s, this has transformed into, but it isn't food we're bringing in from abroad. This is a transformation of locally grown food from smallholder farmers that is connected to a market, which is the school meals, to diverse local foods that improve nutrition, to better health, for the question that was asked, to better livelihoods, to actually poverty reduction. And bingo, in one setup, you have a connection that is structurally changes how food systems operate. Then in the 2000s, governments woke up to this. And today we have 466 million children who receive school meals, 180 million in this region, predominantly driven by you, the governments in this room. That is scale. And there is no one able to scale like governments. I mean, it's incredible to see what this region alone has been able to do in this agenda. So for us, it hits so many sectors. It hits nutrition because it is local and diverse. I still remember my honey sandwich, my fava bean sandwich in depth of Khartoum. So it is transformational. I remember also, and I think quite critical, that this has implications for smallholder farmers and giving them, was it you, Massimo, who once told me the best fertilizer is actually a market? No? Okay. But that is indeed that. It links these smallholder farmers to a predictable market in their countries. Then you healed people from the volatility also of what's going on in the world. It is incredible what we are able to do with homegrown school meals. I think ADB's plan to invest in transformational food system initiatives is definitely a huge step in the right direction, and I think one that can change this region fundamentally. Also, one small and important figure, because it's important to remember gender in these issues, when girls stay in school and get educated, and they get to high school, you have a lot less early child marriages, you have a lot less adolescent pregnancies, and you get about 2 trillion pumped into the economy. So you're investing in a school meal and investing in your entire future. So, yeah.
Great, yep. So homegrown, homegrown foods for school feeding programs, school feeding meals. I also want to push you a little bit. Can we also push for school gardens or school food gardens so students can produce their own food? They also learn agriculture, learn about food instead of, oh, my food is coming from refrigerators. My sort of chocolate milk is coming from a brown cow, a black cow. You know, we used to joke about it some years ago. So let's think about it. I think definitely there are lots of innovations that
in fact, I'm going to add something even more important. Children learn in schools about better nutrition. And you know where children take that? Back home to their mothers. And that is powerful. I grew up anemic, not for lack of resources, but simply lack of knowledge and understanding and advocacy. And now we change the lives of these kids because you teach them what a nutritious plate is like, and they take that home and they teach their parents. So even more power.
Excellent, excellent. We still have probably 5 to 7 minutes. Let's go to the last round. Just give you 1 minute or so. Let's have a rapid dating. Yeah, how can you, yes, we started with Yvonne this time.
Good.
So how can you work more closely with somebody here in the panel? It's like a speed dating, right? So what's the best date? Well, obviously you can have multiple dates in this situation.
Let me be specific because I prefer specifics to generalizations. First of all, my brother, food policy, Johan Swinnen, I think we have much to do to calm the nerves in these volatile times about the importance of food, the importance of the inputs and some diversification of those. So from the research arena, we have new microbial products for fertilization. We need to enhance, invest and grow that domain. I think we need to work very closely with organizations like FAO. We need to work with you to understand, especially in the context of my interest, which is rice and crops, what is the water availability at a regional level? 20 years from now, how do we address the criticism that we are exporting water from Asia in the rice that we export to the rest of the world? And how do we mitigate against a scenario where we have depleted Asia's water in order to provide food security in the region? If I look to my colleagues here near me, we want to work very closely to ensure that these solutions work for farmers. In the absence of being able to transition farmers to improved practice and sustain the activities that enable them to contribute to the food system, we will fail in our mission. And therefore, we need to work really closely to understand what works for them. We need to communicate with them in ways that they understand and build their capabilities. Some of them will be rural in terms of their employment. Others will be confined to the agriculture sector. And we need to be able to ensure more nutritious commodities, not more in terms of volume, more in terms of value. So we are committed as an institution and as a consortium of research institutions to be able to do that through the likes of the multilateral banks, ADB and others, but particularly because our commitment lies with governments, their priorities, and ensuring we work with the institutions.
Sure. Shall we move the microphone to this? Well, one by one very quickly.
Sure.
And we are running out of time.
I'm actually
I know you're willing to work with everybody. Maybe you can just emphasize.
I think we already are, but I'm going to focus on Donal and IFAD. You know, when you said that having tickets below 5 million for SMEs that work generally in the food systems, one of our biggest strengths is WFPs. We're everywhere. And we have thousands of partners, local partners, that are those that we procure from, those that actually are our transporters, those that are helping us in setting up warehouses and our whole supply chain. And they are all predominantly investable but don't have the ability to find those resources. We team up with IFAD and help to bring in
so
market
with IFAD
investment. So WFP and IFAD, game
That's
on.
clear.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. So Donald, now it's your response.
Okay, good. Well, the Rome-based agencies, I don't know, we just sort of morph into
We're sitting together right now.
Three together, exactly. Maybe it's just protection and shelter with each other, but we work well together, we can work better. So if you want me to pick someone else out the system, I would say my friend Lawrence and Gain.
Hot demand.
Lawrence, because on a personal basis we've known each other and challenged each other for many years, but also for someone like IFAD, we're a financer. You know, we're not a technical agency, we rely on FAO, we rely on WFP, but we have a partnership now with Gain on nutrition, because for too long we were trying to mainstream nutrition and we were looking inwards. And I said, but there's plenty of specialist agencies out there. Let's buy in that partnership and that expertise. And so I really like to see
I'm happy to hear that. 15 years ago, there was an IPRI staff at IFAD to mainstream nutrition. James, correct? What is her name? Anyway, Maximo. Huh?
I already work with all of them, so we have a very good love relationship. With IFPRI, with CIR, we work a lot on the varieties, because the important thing for us is we don't go deep in science. You guys go deep in science. We need the varieties of rice. We need improvements in livestock to make them more sustainable. And that's I think, answer to Purnima. I think that's the today and tomorrow. No? It's very important to look at the today, to grow more effectively, more efficiently, with less, because tomorrow we also want to achieve the right to food. And that's the only way we can assure sustainability. And that's linked to your comment on hidden cost. We have done 2 reports on hidden cost, which exactly try to look at that, what we need to minimize to be able to achieve the tomorrow. So because that's what we want to, the right to food. With IFAD, of course, and with the World Bank and others, we want to scale up, and that's the way we can work together. So the segmentation of our roles, I think, is extremely clear. Sometimes we mix them a lot, and that could be a problem sometimes, but not always. It's always good to have some boundaries that can filter each other, but it's important to go deep in our core functions.
Deeper, right.
Yep. And finally, just very quickly, I stop, but I think on the livestock issue and the under and overnutrition issue, I think it's extremely important to understand that healthy diets is trying to resolve the double burden, no? The under and the overnutrition. And there are countries that are consuming in excess livestock and countries which are under-consuming livestock because they need the proteins and the enzymes. So we need to be very clear that these sectors, all of these fruits and vegetables and livestock are important to the diets, and it depends, of course, on where we are over and under consuming and how we can balance those.
Great. Yo.
Thanks very much. So as Maximo said already, we as well, we are collaborating essentially with all the partners in the audience here, or basically not in the audience, but on the panel. And I'm really excited about the new ADB strategy. I mean, thanks for having us here, for engaging. I mean, we talked about the last mile, we talked about the first mile also today. I think what's really crucial in this whole food system transformation process is the miles in between, right? Okay, and this, for example, Tom Reardon has often referred to this as the hidden middle, okay, because it didn't come out explicitly in what we tried to do. And this was basically, it brought up very well, I think, both on all the people on the panel here in the ADB strategy, because this is not just important that they are there, but really as a strategy, okay, as a mechanism, as an instrument, okay, to finance and to provide technology and insight information to the first mile and the last mile and the people there. So I think it can play a very important role there in terms of just energizing the entire change from beginning.
Yes, absolutely. Actually, the missing middle or hidden middle study was funded by ADB, Tom Reardon, Kevin Chen, you know, this sort of a quiet revolution. Lawrence.
So totally agree with Maximo's answer on the ILRI issue. Don't worry, we're not forgetting about you. People who are consuming too much need to consume less. People who are not consuming enough need to consume more, and the systems need to become much more efficient to do that. Iris, I'm happy to talk to you afterwards about your question on civil society, because it's a long answer, but very few people make policy, but many, many more people implement policy successful, and civil society is very important in that. I've got a very specific example to share with you if you.
Great.
On collaboration in general, I think we work with nearly everyone here on the panel. I think the times mean that we have to collaborate more. I'm so glad that Donald used the word collaboration because that's very focused on a particular end goal. Coordination, I'm not super keen on coordination. Often it's just coordinating for coordinating's sake, but collaboration is focused, it's got an end product, you're collaborating for a reason. I think the times demand it. So many governments say it's too confusing, there's too many initiatives, so we need to defragment the space between us. I think the question is how to do that when resources are scarce. We're all here because we care about the issues, but in our job descriptions, it's raising funds for our organizations. And that's really difficult to square those two things. It shouldn't be, but it is. Again, I always tell all my staff, you put the issue first and you put gain second. So I think collaboration is really important. It's not easy to do in any time, especially this time, but to do it successfully, we need to put egos and logos aside every now and then to do that. And I actually think investors can really help us and provide us with very clear incentives to do that, including the ADB. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I heard several keywords. One is, under the current situation, better prioritization, to do more, to do better with less. Then partnership, cooperation, not only among ourselves, but also with the civil societies, with every one of you here in the whole world. The innovation, here are the growth of innovations. Innovations is indeed can do more with less. That's part of the innovation process. Then here from the previous panel, is from the country leaders. I think South-South cooperation is also very critical. So India, Timor-Leste, Africa, China, even Japan with South and North cooperation. I think under the current budget cut or aid depletion, I think South-South cooperation can move beyond the money. I think this is very critical. So with that, I want to thank you, the 6 panelists, for their great contribution. Shall we give them a round of applause? Now we go to the last session. I think we still have a closing remark, right? Oh, we have to take a photo. Okay. Sorry for another 1 minute. Let's do that.
We take a photo after the closing. Okay, so let's first continue with the closing session and then we come back for a photo. I think we heard really, whenever I come with other colleagues and people who are working in the agriculture sector, it really warms my heart to share our intelligence experience. Now, I would like to invite our Director General of ADB's Private Sector Operations Department, Isabel Chatterton. She leads ADB's efforts to catalyze sustainable private investment across Asia and the Pacific. Please join me in welcoming Director General Isabel.
Thanks, everyone. What a fantastic set of panels. So today's discussion made one point clear. Private investment will follow when science is strong, policies are credible, and the pathway to scale is practical. So when evidence and policy align, markets respond, and transformation becomes possible. Food and agriculture are at the core of private sector activities. In Asia and the Pacific, the private sector accounts for more than 80% of agri-food investment and investment needs. The sector represents around 30% of GDP and 50% of the workforce, and about 35% of global greenhouse emissions. Yet, it remains underfinanced, receiving less than 4% of global financial flows. Closing that gap is essential if we are serious about food system transformation. ADB's private sector support will represent about 28% of our 40 billion food system commitment, more than 11 billion from ADB's own balance sheet between 2022 and 2030 for both food security and food systems transformation. Our annual commitments will grow from under about $1 billion today in years to close to about $2 billion by 2030. And we will do more by mobilizing commercial capital and development finance with partners, combining direct investments in agribusiness with indirect support through financial intermediaries, including ADB's microfinance program and our trade and supply chain finance program. But ADB's value is not only the financing we provide or mobilize. It is the development impact we aim for. Better outcomes for partners, consumers, the environment, and economies. It is the demonstration effect, showing that innovative, sustainable models can be profitable and scalable, so others will follow. And it is what we learn about bottlenecks, so governments can address them through smarter policies and sovereign investments. That is why ADB has initiated policy dialogues in multiple development member countries in partnership with FAO, Investment Center, and other development partners. ADB is indeed in a unique position to combine public and private investments. The countries that we discussed this morning provide great examples of this type of public-private synergy. Let me talk about three. In Mongolia, for example, ADB public sector investments laid the foundations for private sector investments through financial intermediary assistance to MSMEs. The work prepared the ground for larger direct investments by ADB's to agribusiness companies. A second example is Timor-Leste. ADB partnered with an international coffee merchant to conduct pioneering work with coffee farmers through technical assistance. This work was substantially scaled up and a very successful ADB public sector project overall. And last, I wanted to mention the example in India. ADB has supported the horticulture sector in Maharashtra state through both public sector investments under the Magnet program, as well as private sector partnership with a fertilizer company that has impacted more than 2 million farmers. I am glad to see that private sector is featured in as many as 32 sessions this week, from leading food and agriculture companies across the region to innovators and sustainability-focused partners. To conclude, I wanted to look back at what VP Fatima Yasmin told us in her opening remarks this morning. The challenge for all of us is now to mobilize even more public and private capital to scale nature-positive food systems across the region. On this note, thank you for your attention, and I hope you enjoy lunch.
Thank you, Director General Isabel. Just one last announcement. Your lunch is served in the EDR upstairs as well as multifunctional hall. And for all the panelists, we invite you to the podium to take a picture. Thank you very much, everyone, and enjoy the rest of the forum. And list the photos.
Okay, here you go. Sure,
Thank you very much.
Stand here.
I see those people.
Right.
You know, a house that had no reason to be in it.
Right.
I didn't speak.